Alrighty, so this is another one of those week where we don't have a matinee game on Saturday, which means that I can afford to do a preview on the day of the match because by the time this video is going to upload it, we won't probably have a match until 3.5 hour kickoff in terms of the busy Saturday night action. There's going to be 14 games that's going to be happening on Saturday night. And again, for those that don't like this, I mean, yes, I kind of wish these games were more spaced out, but I can also understand why they don't do it because it is the summertime. You don't want to play in the heat, especially in the south where when it's hot and sticky, and that playing the game at around 4:30 or even at 1 p.m. it's not going to be a pleasant time. But that being said, though, we do have some great games that's going to happen this match week, especially in the Eastern Conference. We've got two very big game, including a rivalry game that's going to happen this week as well. But we start off with the first Eastern Conference matchup that is not that kind of matinee game. In fact, this is the battle of the mid between Toronto versus Atlanta that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. This is the first of 5 games that start at that time zone. We also have one game that starts 15 minutes after, but it really is 25 minutes because of the fact that game is a FS1 broadcast. But yeah, all-time meeting 6-6-5 in favor of TFC, and yeah, let's just say that hopefully this matchup won't be like last time when we see an Atlanta versus DC game where I said that that was kind of the battle of the mid, and it turns out to be the game you expect it to be, which is a nil-nil draw. Nothing really happened. Nobody really cares after that, and yeah, let's just hope this is not kind of that game. Though I won't be surprised it might be that kind of game because both of these teams they struggle when it comes to goal scoring this season. So won't be surprised if this might be kind of one of those forgettable game in a matchup that only the hardcore fans will actually watch this. Only the real sickos will probably watch this kind of matchup between two teams that are definitely not having a great season. Well, one of them we would expect it to not have a great season, but the other, yeah, let's just say to say that they are probably the most disappointing team so far this season. Now, moving on to a much more hyped up kind of matchup, and a matchup that we should have saw on Wednesday in the U.S. Open Cup, but that game got rained out. But yeah, it's the Philadelphia Union versus the New York Red Bulls, so it's kind of interesting the fact that both of these teams could have played each other in the Open Cup, and then they would have played again in league play. I feel like that has happened more often than it should be. It's kind of a coincidence that both of these teams play against each other in a short amount of period in different competition. But alas, as I said, it wasn't meant to be because the game on Wednesday got rained out. It's going to be postponed till August. But the Union 12-4-5, whereas the Red Bulls is 8-6-7. In terms of the all-time meeting, 18-12-13 in favor of the Philadelphia Union. And if that Open Cup game didn't get postponed, this would have been an interesting headline that whoever wins that one, we'll see whether they can do a double against them, or whoever lost that game probably get some revenge coming into this weekend matchup. So I guess maybe you could say this is like a preview of what we might see in August. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you ask both of these teams which one they would rather win, this match or the one in the Open Cup, I would say it's got to be the Open Cup. I mean, that one you get to the semifinal, you're just a couple of steps away from winning a trophy. That is, I'm pretty sure both head coaches would definitely take that. But still, it is definitely a big game, and especially for the Union, they have been kind of falling through a bit of a hard time in the last couple of games. They've lost back-to-back games. They've falling out of the top spot in the East. They're looking to try to get a win against a Red Bull side that, yeah, we know this season they struggle on the road. And this is a team that doesn't do road wins this year. Now, moving on, we got Orlando versus Montreal. So Orlando 9-7-5, whereas Montreal is 3-5-13. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, 10-4-10 is the all-time meeting. And on paper, this looks like it's a mismatch. This looks like it's a matchup that Orlando should absolutely destroy Montreal in this one. But Montreal has definitely been playing a little bit better recently, and that I don't think this is going to be a walk over for Orlando City. Though I will say that they are very good this season at home, and especially of how good their attack is against a relatively weak defense that Montreal has. Maybe this is going to be one of those one-sided affair that Orlando probably should win this one easily, right? I mean, surely that we haven't seen this story before where a team should win easily against their opposition at home and they falter to do that because MLS is definitely one of the more unpredictable league in the world that is. Now, moving I think a lot of people are looking forward to this one, and it's a shame the fact that this is not separated because anytime when you have a Hell is Real derby, it has to be separated. It cannot be part of this huge mesh of games that's going to be happening throughout this weekend. Again, this is where people are complaining the fact that why in the world are we going to have the Hell is Real Derby alongside with 14 other games that's going to be happening on Saturday, and at one point there's going to be like 10 games that's going to be happening at the same time. Which again, when that happens, it's time to ground hop. But yeah, in this Hell is Real Derby, we've got Cincinnati and Columbus. Cincinnati is 13-3-5. Columbus is 10-8-3. All-time meetings 7-6-4 in favor of the Columbus Crew. So we'll see what this latest chapter of the Hell is Real Derby is going to look like, especially with the way that both of these teams have been playing well recently. That just add the extra spiciness in terms of this rivalry match. I believe in the first meeting it was a 1-1 draw in that game, and that was a very entertaining Hell is Real Derby. I mean, yes, the scoreline doesn't indicate it, but it was actually fun to watch, and we'll see whether or not that is going to be the case again in this one. And again, I really wish this was separated. And honestly, as we will talk about the Sunday night soccer feature game, yeah, we'll talk about how I think the league definitely made a mistake again when it comes to scheduling Sunday night soccer game because while there has been some good Sunday night soccer game, I think the last couple of them has been pretty good. There has been some absolute stinker kind of Sunday night soccer game that we see. Anyway, I gotta blow my nose a little because I'm suffering a little bit of allergy. But yeah, next one we got Charlotte versus NYCFC. So from the Hell is Real Derby to the Desperation Derby. So I say this is a Desperation Derby because for Charlotte, yeah, they're falling apart. Like this has been just a tailspin that they've been going through. And even when they're back at home, they're still not winning games at home, and they're facing against an NYCFC side that just like the Red Bulls, they don't do road wins. I mean, this is a team that is one of the worst team on the road this season with a 9-4-7 record. All-time meeting 4-1-1 in favor of Charlotte FC. So yeah, again, it's a desperation derby mainly because for Charlotte they need to get out of this tailspin and maybe get a couple wins, especially now that they're back home. Part of the reason why they're in this tailspin is because they play so many road games, and they have the same problem as NYCFC where they can't win on the road. They're not even getting draws on the road as well. In fact, the last game that they got was only their second draw of the season in general. So yeah, for this Charlotte team, if they want to get out of the tailspin, they need to get some resort at home and start to build some momentum. And for NYCFC, the frustrating thing about this season is that this is a team that has been super inconsistent. And as I said, the roll form, it's been a problem this season. It's been a problem for this team for the past couple of years. And this is an opportunity to face against a Charlotte team that doesn't have a lot of confidence right now to get that big roll win to kind of stop this kind of inconsistency cycle, and that it feels like for NYCFC every time they get a win, the next game is probably going to be a loss because that's kind of the pattern that they've been going through. So yeah, with the way that they got a win in the last game and a big win that is at home, nevertheless, yeah, it feels like this could be a schedule loss for them, even if they're facing against a Charlotte side that is going for a tailspin right now. Now, moving on into the last match that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, although this matchup again kicks off a little bit later because it's on FS1, and this is a matchup that I'm glad that it's on FS1 and it's kind of on national television because yeah, besides the Hell is Real Derby, this is a matchup that everybody's been looking forward to, and maybe just maybe this could be a preview of what we see in the conference semifinal, even in the conference final as well, because something tells me both of these teams are probably going to make a deep run this season in the playoffs. I mean, surely Inter Miami's got is not going to flame out in the first round like they did last year, right? And they're facing against a Nashville team that is literally the hottest team right now in MLS. They have gone 15 games without a loss in all competition. I believe that's 13 in MLS play, and they're facing against this Miami side that, yeah, it's safe to say that Miami has found their mojo again, and everybody that kind of questioned their rough patch of form that they had back in May. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna question that anymore because this team is once again a wet and again, and Messi is it probably heard those doubters, and his friends probably heard that doubters, and they're start winning game. Now they are playing at home against a Nashville side that, like I said, they are the hottest team in MLS. They have not lost a game in over 3 months now. The last time they lost a game was all the way back in I think April. That is. I mean, yeah, it's been an incredible run by Nashville. So this has been one of the most impressive run we have seen a team has gone through. And I've said before what BJ Cowan has done to this team. I think he maybe even get some consideration for Coach of the Year award. Though again, when you look at the Coach of the Year discussion, there are so many good head coaches this season that I think it could be a really tough to call who exactly is going to win the award, but there's no doubt that yeah, BJ Cowhan, what a job he's been doing, and are really kind of making a lot of U.S. men's national team fans kind of regret that they should have stick around with him instead of going with Pochettino as well. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 5-4 in favor of Inter Miami. But whatever happens, this is going to be an absolute cinema kind of game. I would not be surprised. There could be a lot of goals that could be scored in this one, especially that's kind of how Inter Miami games tends to be sometimes. But yeah, just an absolute cinema kind of game, an absolute blockbuster. Probably one of the best regular season game I think is going to be. And now watch how I hype this game up so much. The fact that this could be a boring kind of game. I mean, surely it can't be a boring game. When you watch an Inter Miami game, there's rarely any Inter Miami games that you can say it's a bore fest, and not to mention they rarely play in no draw. Like this is a team that always are involved games that at least a goal that is being scored, and usually it's coming from them. Now, moving on to the 8:30 p.m. kickoff and the 8:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff, that is, looking at these Midwest games, that is, in the Central Time region, we have the second annual Blues Not Derby between Minnesota versus the San Jose Earthquakes. So this is kind of interesting because, both of these teams did play in the U.S. Open Cup, and both of these teams play 120-minute in the U.S. Open Cup, that is. So this is going to be interesting to see how the fitness level is going to be. Although I will say that I am a little bit more confident that Minnesota might be a little bit more uh more fit coming into this one compared to the Quakes, mainly because one, they're playing at home in this one. This is part of the longest homestand that Minnesota is going to have. I mean, it's hard to believe the Loons are going to be having a four-game homestand if you include the Open Cup and also the friendly that they had against Holstein Kiel. But yeah, this is a team that when you're in a stretch where there's a lot of games that this team has to play, and there's still a lot of games that this team has to navigate. It's good the fact that at least if they have to navigate that, it's better to do it if you're having all these games at home compared to on the road, because when you have like home roll kind of pattern, it really just kind of adds the fatigue of the team. But with them being at home, and the fact that looking at that game against Chicago, they didn't really play like most of their starters for the entire 120 minutes. I think they really only brought their starters in the second half. So in reality, when you look at the players that did play, they played probably what I would say maybe 70 minutes, 60 minutes. That is compared to the Quakes, where they did definitely do the same thing as well. But I think they definitely played more starters against Austin than I expected. And like I said, this is a road game. That is, and after just such a heartbreaking loss that they suffer against Austin, that's going to be tough to trying to wipe that out of their memory. And it also doesn't help the fact that they're facing against a team that when it comes to the Blues not Derby, that is most recently I have seen Minnesota win more against the Quakes recently. The Quakes always tends to struggle when they play against Minnesota on the road, and it used to not be that case. It used to be the Quakes used to be the one that always beat Minnesota, at least in the early year when the Loons came into the league, that is. But recently it's been Minnesota that's just kind of owning the Quakes, and I don't think the Quakes have actually got a win at Allianz Field yet. I mean, I know they got a win in Minnesota, but that was back at their old stadium in TCF Bank. But I don't think they've ever got a win at Allianz Field as well. So it's kind of a house of horror for the Quakes to have to deal with. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 8-4-5 in favor of Minnesota. And again, anytime when you have like a Blues not Derby like that, you always ask me who I rather wants to win. For me, I would say Minnesota, mainly just because they're in a more competitive edge right now. Though I also could say that the Quakes need this one more because again, after that heartbreaking loss that they had against Austin, thanks to some very questionable refereeing decision, and that's all I'll say about it. You can basically go back to that game and basically view it yourself in terms of some of the controversy that happened in that game. I mean, you could say the Quakes need this one more, but anyway, when there ever is a Blues on Derby, at least I'm going to be a winner at the end of this game, unless of course if this game ends in a draw, that is. Now, moving on, we got Sporting KC versus the Seattle Sounders. So this game is also starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. In fact, this is the first. All four of these games starts at the same time. Sporting KC 6-5-10, and they're right in the fix of the thing. I mean, it's hard to believe what a miracle it's been once they finally get rid of Peter Remise. I mean, yes, the team in general they're not playing playing great even after the firing of Peter Remise, but they're definitely playing much better compared to Peter Remise that was just really driving that team to the ground. Now they've faced against a Sounders team that have an 8-6-6 record, all-time meeting pretty close, 12-4-11 in favor of the Seattle Sounders. So yeah, this should be a very interesting matchup. Again, with Ford and KC, they've been playing very well lately, mainly because of the attack that has really kind of carried their team. Their defense is still very suspect, but John Postgame has really played well for the Sporting KC side. Almost kind of like a second coming of Tim Melia that we've seen how he played this season. And for the Sounders, again, they have had some good games coming out the Club World Cup as well, and they're looking to try to continue that and continue to get themselves up in the standings. I mean, when you look at the standings in the West, there is a little bit of a tight spot. I think there's like a freeway tie right now for ninth position at 26 points, and then there are a couple of teams that are also not that far from going above the red line, and the same goes at the near the top of the standings. It is a little bit congested. It's starting there as well. Especially, I think the top three team, both Minnesota, Vancouver, and San Diego. I think they're only separated by just 3 points so far. Now, speaking of San Diego, they're playing against Chicago this game. So for the Fire, like I said, they're another team that play in the U.S. Open Cup, and unfortunately another team that, of course, play in 120 minutes, and just like the Quakes, they lost that game. So yeah, that's definitely not great. Now they didn't play most of their starter until the second half, though. I will say that one of their star player, Philip Ziganago, he did go the whole 120 in this one, and yeah, it's not easy now that you're returning home. Which usually when teams playing back at home after a tough loss they have in the middle of the week, especially in the Open Cup, that's sometimes could be a good thing. Not for the Chicago Fire this season. I mean, this season, home has been a problem for this team. They have not won a lot of home games this season, and now they're facing against the San Diego side that I'm pretty sure they're probably very upset after what happened in their last game against Houston, a game that kind of got away from them. Really, the first time we've seen San Diego not able to close out a game properly, so they definitely want to get themselves back on track, and especially trying to secure that top spot away from Vancouver and Minnesota that is. But yeah, this is of course the first ever meeting between both of these teams, and yeah, this is going to be a fascinating game. A game that I think San Diego is going to be definitely favorites, considering, like I said, Fire this season. They have had their issue this season at home, and especially coming off that grueling 120-minute game that they had against Minnesota, and coming off a loss of that, the confidence level of this Greg Berhalter side will really be tested. This team has been much better when it comes to the mentality. Usually, if this was past Fire team, they would just go on a losing run right away. But this team has shown some great mental toughness, which is something we haven't seen with Fire team in the past, and they definitely need that. Especially they're facing against the best team in the Western Conference and one of the best team in the league in general in San Diego FC. And then last but not least, in terms of the 8:30 p.m. start, we got Austin versus New England. So speaking of teams that play 120, Austin of course played 120 as well, but they of course did get the win that, though it definitely come up with a bit of a cost because yeah, Brandon Vasquez, as I mentioned in my news of the week episode, he's done for the season. He torn his ACL in that game, so this should be very interesting to see who's gonna get the ninth spot. I'm assuming it's probably gonna be Uzuni because that's literally the spot that he's been playing, and that for people that question why has Uzuni has not done well for Austin, well, he's been kind of playing out of position, and this is where the problem of Austin when they signed those two players, where it kind of doesn't make sense because you basically bring these two quality players, which is great, but they play in the same position. So unless you're gonna go with a two striker system, it just does not make sense to put both Uzuni and Vasquez on the same page. It's like pretty much putting a round hole in a square peg. It just doesn't make any sense. So maybe this can really help Uzuni, the fact that now he's back to his natural position. This is where he can find some goal scoring for him, because if that's not going to be the case, oh boy, that we could have another situation where yeah, Austin might be in the same situation that Atlanta did this season, which is spend so much on the attack and they get nothing out of it. Now they're facing against a New England side that yeah, New England has definitely fallen through hard time, and I will say that the last game against Miami, that was probably the best game I think New England has played during this losing run. But that being said, they still lost that game, and yeah, now that they're low in confidence, they'll have to go on the road in a midweek game, that is, which is easy. But in terms of the all-time meeting, there's only one other meeting between both of these teams. It was a 2-2 draw between both of these teams. So yeah, we'll see who, of course, will prevail in this one. You can maybe say it could be a desperation derby too. Although for Austin, I mean, yes, they got that big win. I mean, I guess you could say that they're still desperate to try to get wins so they can stay above the red line because they're one of those teams that I mentioned how the West is a little bit tight in the playoff race in terms of the last four spot. They're one of those teams that's tied on 26 points and just above the red line right now. So there's not a lot of breathing room for this Austin team to have to try to stay above the red line right now. Now, looking at some of the late Coast games, that is, we start with RSL versus the Houston Dynamo. So, speaking of teams that's just above the red line, the Houston Dynamo actually found themselves above the red line right now. And it's been kind of interesting because, the Houston Dynamo have kind of gone through some tough patches, but then they got that big win against San Diego. And as a result, they kind of propel themselves above the red line as a result. Now, RSL is below the red line, but they're not that far below the red line. They're only 4 points out of it with a 6-4-10 record. I believe they also have a game in hand over the Houston Dynamo. So this could be a big game for both of these teams in terms of the playoff races. I mean, I know we're about 20 something game into the season now, 21 games into the season, but we're really starting to get that discussion as we head into August and to September that the playoff race is definitely going to be on, and this is where it's crunch time for some of these teams that is in the bubble to try to make it to the playoffs. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 12, 9, and 10 in favor of RSL. By the way, this is the first of two 9:30 p.m. Eastern starts. So anytime when that happens, the two teams in the Mountain Time Zone are playing, and that of course is the case at home this season with RSL and Colorado both play at home. But yeah, this I feel like this could be a very underrated matchup. Not a lot of people would have thought that this could be a big matchup, but I think this is big just because of the playoff race that is, and the fact that one team is just above the red line, but they don't have a lot of breathing room, and the other team that is below the red line. And anytime when you're below the red line and you're facing against a team that's just above the red line that could consider to be a rival for you when it comes to the playoff race, you need to win those games. This is going to be a big playoff 6 pointer for both of these teams. Now, moving on, we got Colorado versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. So Colorado, I believe they're just below the red line right now. And the problem with Colorado this season, they've just been so inconsistent, and that's kind of what's hurt their playoff chances. Though they're facing against a Whitecaps team that, if they faced against the Whitecaps maybe back in May or April, they had no shots in this game. But the Whitecaps have definitely came back down to earth. They only won 2 games ever since they lost 5-0 in that CONCACAF Champions Cup final against Cruz Azul. That is, but yeah, ever since that they've been kind of a little bit mediocre, and we kind of expected that this was going to be the case. I mean, with all the national team call up and stuff like that, that has kind of took a toll on this team. We knew that they were going to go for a rough patch. Now they get those players back. So now that they of course get those players back, and this is really the first time in a long time since the Whitecaps have their strongest team. Yeah, you would expect they should be back to be in a wagon kind of stats, and they get a chance against a Rapids team that, like I said, this is a team that's very inconsistent. Like there times where they could be good, and then there's times where they could be bad, and that includes their home and roll form as well. You just don't know what kind of Rapids team would show up. Though the last game, yeah, it was not a memorable one for a Colorado Rapids fan. And yes, they will be mad in terms of the red card that was shown. That probably shouldn't have been a red card just 5 minutes into the game. But yeah, that was pretty miserable in that game against LAFC. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 13, 8, and 12 in favor of the Colorado Rapids, and yeah, we'll see whether or not if Colorado can bounce back. And it's not easy when you're facing against a Vancouver side. But like I said, this is probably the first time in a long time that this Whitecaps team will have a full strength kind of team, and they're gonna wreak havoc again in the Western Conference like they've done for majority of this season. Now, moving on, we now talk about the two LA teams because both of them are also playing at home, and both of them are part of the 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 10:30 p.m. Eastern start. We start off with LAFC versus FC Dallas. LAFC has an 8-5-3 record. Dallas have a 5-6-9 record. All-time meeting 6-2-4 in favor of LAFC. Now, on paper, this looks like it's an absolute match. I mean, LAFC has been pretty good this season at home for the most part. They just won 3-0 in that game against Colorado and made it look easy in that one, and they're facing against another struggling team. That should be 3 points, right? Well, if you haven't seen Dallas this season, well, yes, they are struggling this season. That's not been the case on the road. The road has been where Dallas has got most of the wins that season and are playing some of the most entertaining game this season on the road. That is, I always said that when Dallas are playing the road, expect there should be some fireworks because that's just kind of how the rule is with them this season. I mean, their home form is obviously absolutely atrocious, and it's kind of why they where they are finding themselves in the standings. So yeah, for LAFC, they got to be careful because this is a Dallas team that they can definitely create some threat, especially on the attacking end. They're a very good attacking team that is, especially when they're on the road. So don't be surprised there might be some fireworks, and don't be surprised if this might be a resort where it could be something that maybe not a lot of people would have saw coming, where Dallas could pull off a big road win, despite the fact that, like I said, their recent form has not been great whatsoever. And then we look at the other LA team, and they're playing against DC United in this one. Now, this was back in 1996, or even in the late 90s, that is. This would have been a marquee matchup because anytime with the Galaxy and DC play against each other in the early days of MLS, it's basically must-watch TV. These are two of the most historic and most successful team in MLS history. But yeah, lately it hasn't really been that case. I mean, yes, for the Galaxy, they did win their sixth MLS Cup, but it's kind of almost forgotten now because of the way that how bad this season has gone, and this is probably the worst season we have seen a defending MLS Cup champion has ever had. I mean, you talk about the MLS Cup hangover being a thing. This is that, and then some with all the problem that this team has faced, especially with the injuries that they've been facing too as well. Now they're facing against a DC side that just fired Troy Lesesne recently. They're going to have an interim head coach at least for this game. I don't think they finalized their recent signing. I think it's like that Renee Wen kind of guy that they of course hired recently. I don't think he's going to be ready yeah, for this game as well. But still, yeah, this is a game that, like I said, if this was back in the late '90s, it would have been an entertaining game. But because of how both of these team has, it feels like it's just one of those games similar to the Toronto versus Atlanta game. It's the battle of mid and the battle of the falling giants between both of these teams. Even though, I mean, can you call the Galaxy a falling giant when they just won an MLS Cup recently? It's hard to say that. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 5-5-3 in favor of the LA Galaxy. And then last but not least, we're now going to talk about the Sunday night soccer game between St. Louis and the Portland Timbers. And yeah, like I said, I do not know why this is a Sunday night soccer game. I also do not know why we're once again getting another Sunday night soccer game between both of these teams. This is like I think the only matchup we've seen this Sunday night soccer where we have seen this matchup before. And I get maybe in the beginning of the season, maybe the league thought that this was going to be an entertaining matchup. It hasn't been that case. I mean, St. Louis has had a rough season. 3-6-11 is their record. The Timbers have a better season. 9-6-5 is their record, but they've been very inconsistent in their recent form, that is. And in terms of the all-time meeting, 2 wins, 2 draw, and 2 losses apiece between both of these teams. So yeah, again, when you have these kind of matchup like this, a matchup that clearly doesn't deserve to be in the matinee kind of action, or at least in the marquee kind of window that is. You just hope that it's a good game. I mean, last time when both of these teams face off against each other, it was actually a pretty entertaining game, and we'll see whether or not if that's going to be the case again in this one. Because honestly, like I said, I hope next year when they do Sunday night soccer, there's a chance where MLS can do something that NFL does, where they have a chance to flex some of these games that are just kind of shouldn't be part of the marquee kind of win that is because again, if they had a chance to flex some of these games, I would have flexed this game into this one or even this one as well. Though I don't think this one can be flexed because it's on FS1. But if there's any out of all of these games that can be flexed in this window instead, it's got to be the Hell is Real Derby. I would prefer the Hell is Real Derby on Sunday Night Soccer than the St. Louis and Portland Timbers kind of game. And again, this is no disrespect to both fan base, but I think if you ask any MLS fans that watch this league and any sickos that watch this league as well, yeah, you would definitely feel like the marquee matchup and the game that is always marketed as the biggest game of the match week could be the Hell is Real Derby instead of St. Louis versus Portland Timbers. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for my preview of all 15 of these games. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this preview, and let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 15 of these games. That is, we do have some midweek action coming up. In fact, again, we're in the midst of a really busy schedule because the Leeds Cup is coming up, so that's why MLS is squeezing all of these games as much as possible because, well, yes, there are still going to be games that's going to be taking place during the Leeds Cup. That is, the league doesn't actually pause this season for the Leeds Cup. It's not going to be as much, especially with the way that we still have MLS team participating in the Leagues Cup, and obviously those teams participating in the Leagues Cup can't play regular season game at the same time as well. So, like I said, that's why the league is squeezing a really tight schedule that we're seeing right now in July as well. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.